and realizing that there was a whole nother world of gear out there where I could make it even less complicated for myself, because now there are companies making heads where I didn't need to put anything in front of it. You could go from guitar to amp straight in and not have to worry about anything else, because all that tone and all that substance that I was looking for was already inside the head. And the first time I ever played through a Randall, and now specifically these Randall VMAX heads, I was able to accomplish that. And I've always wanted the simplest possible thing, because I don't want any complicated rack full of crap with too many buttons and too many switches, because all that ever does is more things will go wrong and you get more noise, you know, in your signal. So guitar, head, speakers, that's all I've ever really needed for my sound. And this combination that I've got with this guitar, my new Washburn Signature model, I'm using a Seymour Duncan pickup, which is a custom wound that they custom wind for me, called the El Diablo, and then the Randall VMAX, and I'm able to just get exactly what I want. As simple as that. Just plug in and go. And I could go anywhere in the world and plug in one of these heads, and I'm gonna get exactly what I'm looking for, which 20 years ago, that didn't exist. You couldn't do that. And you know, that's why I have to say thanks, technology. But this is it. I mean, it's a pretty basic thing, and I'll show you like some of my settings and how I go about achieving that sound right now. So my main tone, the main sound I'm using all the time, which is the big, fat, disturbing, wonderful, you know, thing that I've been talking about for the last 5 hours. The thing that I love to do best. It's pretty simple. I mean, right on the head, you got your gain. Very important gain structure. It's important to have a lot of gain structure. I'm usually keeping that about 3/4 of the way up, because I find anything more than that, it's just redundant. And what ends up happening is it just gets too fuzzy and you start losing the definition. And I'm trying to show you here. As you pull it back, obviously, it starts to clean it up. And what I suggest with whatever amp you may have, it's the best way to see where you like it is just by just taking that gain and just keep adding it until you get the edge and the distortion that makes you happy. Mine is usually right about there, about 3/4. So it's still clean and defined, yet you've got all that punch and all the edge that, you know, you're looking for with a metal tone. Next here we've got bass. About halfway up. Pull it all the way out, and you've got something that no one's ever going to want to listen to. But as you roll it in, bring that bottom up, obviously you can hear, that's where you're getting that oomph from. That's where it's kicking you right in the balls at 110 dB. That's what you want. Mid-range. Mid-range is very important, because just depending on your overall tone, sometimes it sounds great with the mid-range cranked, like this, which gives it a real good hum. And mid-range is basically the middle. It's the middle of your tone. I prefer, myself, if you listen to it, from where all the way up here, pulling it out, or what us in the biz call scooping. It just kind of warms up the whole sound. So I'm usually keeping my mid-range about 1/4 of the way up. Treble. You see, treble on the other hand, I'm a big treble fan, because the combination where I'm keeping my bass and the middle, my treble is usually up somewhere around 60 to 75%, because I find that's what obviously is defining a lot of the tone. Because without it, well, here you can hear it there. Pull the treble out, and it sounds like someone's got a big fat pillow over the whole thing. But roll it back in, and you hear that edge and you hear that top come back, and it gives you lots of attack. Obviously, the more treble you throw in, the more attack you're going to get on your sound. You don't want too much, because once again, too much top end, you're just going to, you know, dogs are going to be howling and cats are going to be attacking, and you don't want any of that crap. Presence, I don't even know what presence does. Let's see. Here's where it sounds good to me. Start rolling more of it in. It just kind of adds a top end, I guess. So I usually fuck around with the presence knob until it just sounds good. I really don't even know what presence is besides a Led Zeppelin record. So that's just me showing my ignorance, I guess. Or the fact that they probably wouldn't even need it on the amp and it would still sound great. Level, kind of obvious. I've always been of the school of play as loud as you want to until someone, if your mom's threatening to throw you out of the house, then maybe you got to turn down a little bit. But, I agree with what Ted Nugent says. If it's too loud, you're too old. On this EQ here on the head, you've got this little 6-band graphic, which I don't mess around with too much. I mean, I actually know what this does. It's basically just another version of what you've got going on here, but you're able to even fine-tune it even more. Starting from the low end down here at 80 hertz and then going up to 5K over here. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of what hertz and K stand for. If you want to know that, then you could go to audio school. But it's kind of obvious just by messing around with these little knobs here. On the low end of things, pulling low end out or adding it. I just find with any type of thing like this, any EQ, just move them around till it sounds good. You don't even need to know what it means. It's just a case of finding where that little switch is going to sound the best to your ear, and just, and then just go with it from there. And then obviously over here you got your masters, and on this head, basically your master volume, pretty self-explanatory. This is the master control for the whole head of, how much output you're getting. This density thing, this is kind of the sweet little secret of this head right here, because this density thing, I'm not quite sure what it's actually controlling, but it just adds this insane amount of thickness. You can listen to that. I'm going to pull it all the way out now. It's all the way out. So it kind of sounds like a bass control, but bring this thing in, you can hear it thickening up. So once again, it's just to my ear where it gets to that point of, okay, it's perfect. It doesn't need any more or any less. Perfect. And I would say just no matter what head, no matter what amp you're using, it's the best way to do it. It's just sit there with every single knob, back and forth, just kind of chunking away until you get it, pinpoint it. And then the best thing to do is mark those settings. Obviously this head isn't marked yet, but because I know pretty much where the knobs are going anyway. But you want to mark them, get a little grease pencil or a piece of tape or something, and just mark it so you'll always know to come back to that if you end up going somewhere else with it. And then you got a master presence again over here, which I pretty much keep where the other presence is. Presence, I don't know. And then there's your power switch. Simple. Sometimes a song actually calls for something else besides that sound, that wonderful sound that I love so much. And on those rare occasions where, we do have a song where I do need another tone, something less metal and maybe more rock sounding, like an AC/DC tone. And what's great about this head is it's got 3 distinctly separate channels, and I'm able to get 3 absolutely distinctly different sounds out of this thing, which makes my job easier because then I don't need multiple heads and more cabinets, and I hate cluttering up anything. So it's simple because it's all in one box. So for instance, down over here you've got your clean channel, and switch to that and you'll notice it's much cleaner. It cleans up real nice considering how much gain I'm running with this pickup in this head. The difference between the dirty sound and the clean sound obviously is night and day. So you take a song like, we have a song called Refuse to Be Denied, where it starts off with this clean, and it's got a switch to, and then back. Having the technology to be able to do that makes my life so much easier. So that's basically my clean sound, which is just, just cleaning it up. It's very self-explanatory. The other channel in this, which is the overdrive solid state channel, I basically use for what I call my AC/DC setting, which is my just straight up hard rock tone. Whereas, you know, that's my metal tone, and then you got much cleaner tone, and then in this channel, you've got, see the difference between the clean and that, and then the metal. So the overdrive channel, it's just much more of a straight up rock tone, much more AC/DC like, where pretty much just the reason it's sounding different than the metal channel is the gain is pulled back. Whereas in the metal channel, I've got the gain at about 75%. This channel, I've only got it in 50%. I've got the overall level a little bit louder. And then everything else, bass, treble, middle, presence. I heard a long time ago that Angus puts all his settings on 7 on his amp, basically. He just takes everything straight across, puts it about almost, you know, 3/4 of the way up. So that's pretty much what I do in this channel. And it just gives it this great straight up rock tone. So I've got 3 distinct different sounds going on, and I'm able to, you know, just call them up whenever I need them. The guitar pick. It's you know, it's all up to what you feel. I use what is this? Where's Brian? The guitar pick, obviously very important unless you're finger picking all the time. In heavy metal, you're not going to be doing a lot of that. So the guitar pick, I use a relatively heavy pick. I'm not using a super, super thick, stiff like bass pick or anything like that. This is a .88 millimeter. I would think a lot of guys are using something maybe a little lighter than this to a little heavier than this, up to like a 1 millimeter. But I find this has just enough give on the strings where it's not super, super stiff. I kind of like it to have a little bit of gives, especially when I'm alternating. I don't know, it's just the feel of it. It just comes down to what feels best for you, just like anything else on the guitar. Same with strings. I'm using strings from a company called DR because years ago, the guitar player from King's X, Ty Tabor, who I think is one of the best guitar players in the world, he actually said to me, you know, I've checked out these strings called DR, and I am telling you, if your tone is here, this is the way he described it to me. He said, if your tone is this big, it will become this big. And I said, how can a string make so much difference? I know this sounds like a commercial right now. Hold on to your hats. But seriously, there's something about these strings. They just resonate and they ring out, and there's no other way for me to explain it other than they just sound great. And I use a very heavy gauge string because I find as a rhythm player especially, and I've got a very heavy right hand when I'm picking. I mean, I'm really laying in, even when I'm playing at speed, I'm really digging in there. So I need a heavier gauge string, otherwise I would never be playing in tune. And I'm generally running, usually starting here, it's kind of a custom set of 10s is what they make for me, going from a 10 here on the high E to a 56 here on the low E. And I find I never have a problem with tuning. Even if I'm tuning down and the tension is loosening up, pretty much will always hold because they're such just ballsy, ballsy strings. You might not want to start as a beginner guitar player using 10s or 11s, something like that. It's going to shred your fingers. I mean, you will literally, your fingers will be bleeding. So I would suggest not trying to jump right into a real heavy gauge string. I would say start with a set of 9s, and that might not make any sense to you, but if you go into the guitar shop and tell them you want a set of 9s for your guitar, believe me, the guy at the store will understand what you're talking about. Start with like 9s. As you start building the calluses on your fingers, then start moving up to a heavier gauge, because just overall, a heavier gauge, they'll just sound better anyway. But I wouldn't jump right in with that because you're going to tear your fingers apart and be really bummed. So now you've got your amp all set up, you've got your tones dialed in, you've got the guitar in your hands, you've got your pick, you've got your 9s. Remember 9s. So basically you're playing, and you've got 2 other limbs here. You've got 2 feet that you're going to want to get involved in the mix as well. And what you're going to be doing with your feet is obviously using your foot switch and or effects pedals that you may or may not have. The foot switch, like I said, very simple. It's just for changing between channels on the head. So you can go from your really heavy channel to your really clean channel to your really rock channel. And it's just, you know, there's the clean sound, there's the rock sound, back to the clean sound. And it's something that takes a little bit of getting used to. Obviously, you know, when you're standing up and you're playing along with something, or, you know, you're playing your song and, you know, you got to look down and, you know, get in there to change it. Or it's like anything else. It just comes with practice and a little bit of coordination, and you'll do just fine. And don't worry about, you know, get in there and step on it. That's what they're made for. These switches are heavy duty. Step on that thing. Next, I've only got one piece of outboard gear, which I used to not have any outboard gear at all, till a company called Digitech came out with this thing known as the whammy pedal, which for me, when I first heard it, it was just basically like, I just got to have one of those because listen to the noises you can make with this thing. I mean, obviously if you're familiar with a tremolo bar that would be on a guitar, you know, it's one of those bars that you see guys like Eddie Van Halen have over here, and you can go like, woo, with it. Well, it's basically taking that, but putting it on your foot. So you could be doing anything over here and then going to outer space. So I mean, I originally just got it because I thought I could make some crazy noises with it, which I can. I mean, what is that? What does that sound? What is that sound? You know, seriously, I would sit here and play with this stupid thing, just making noise for hours and hours and hours. And then it eventually became a part of the songwriting. We'd actually, you know, use this thing in riffs, use it. I would be using it for leads and all different kinds of things. And obviously, if you're a fan of Rage Against the Machine or obviously Pantera, you'll know guys like Tom Morello and Dimebag Darrell are all over these pedals. So you might be listening to a song going, how the hell is he getting that insane high note? It's the whammy pedal. That's how he's doing it. And I pretty much only use 2 settings on it. I have it set up so I can go 2 octaves up, like you just heard. And then I have it, you just click on that switch right there, and it goes to 2 octaves down, which is basically my favorite sound in the whole world. That's the sound of Armageddon right there. I could just sit there and listen to that all day long, which sometimes I do, boys and girls. So, you know, and then just even doing stupid things like that makes me so happy. And that's why I play guitar, because it makes me happy. Thank you very much. Probably the riff I get the most questions about is the breakdown in the song Indians, which we like to call the war dance part. And as you can see, I'm standing here in this weird fake white limbo, and there's no white in heavy metal. So anyway, one of the riff that I get asked most about is the war dance part of Indians, and people are always asking me what's the proper way, you know, to play that. What are you actually playing there? So I figured since I've been asked that about 1,000,000 times, I will show you the proper way to play that riff. I'll play it through a couple of times and then I'll slow it down for you. Okay, now to slow it down. Starts off simple, G to E. Notice the palm muting in there on the 2 first hits on the E, you gotta mute those. So it's 2 palm mutes and then open on when you get to that E. So it starts. And then alternating back and forth between E, F, and E. So we start. All muted. So put that together. And then you open it up. Put that all together. That's the riff from Indians. Sounds right. What was this? This was a bridge section from the song Black Lodge off of Sound of White Noise. Kind of doesn't really go with the setting I'm in. Love the E minor chord. Should have me in a black room. It's not a white lodge. I'm trying to evil up the lameness of the setting right now with this riff.
Okay, you're not happy. Okay, let me ask you this. What if